Hello everyone, this is Shilpa Sharma, lecturer, Human Resource Department, CIMAGE Group of Institutions, Patna. In my last video, I briefed about various models of organizational behavior. In this video, I am going to talk about the various challenges which are faced by organizations in managing behavior of its people. See, after LPG era, there has been a lot of changes in the various practices of business. The situation today is where the businesses are operating in a highly dynamic situation. And the same management practices cannot be applied to each and every culture also. The various challenges which are faced by organizations these days in managing the behavior of its people are multiple. For example, cross-cultural dynamism. For example, workforce diversity. The changing organizational designs. The workforce aspiration, which has grown many times more than the last few decades. These are all big topics. I'll take up these one topic in single video. Today I am going to deal with one of the major challenges of organizational behavior, which is cross-cultural dynamism. Now, what is cross-cultural dynamism and how is this posing a problem in managing the behavior of its people, of an organization's people? Cross-cultural dynamism means cultural diversity. Liberalization and globalization, these two words have led to a massive change in the structure of business, where liberalization allows doing whatever one wants in business. Globalization is making the people global. If we talk just in respect of human resource, we see that the managers from India go abroad and manage someone else. Someone else comes with their company, their structure in India, and where an Indian is required to work and adapt to its culture. Is this easy? No. Why? Because it has been thoroughly researched and found and validated that various cultures, they have completely different behavior. Now, when they have different behavior, the same management practices cannot be applied to each and every culture in the same manner. Now, people do not differ just in terms of language or ethnicity, but people differ completely in terms of the work-life balance they want, the workforce aspirations they have, the expectations, the values, the attitude, everything. That is why organizations find a tough time in designing the management practice which is best suited to a certain culture. Now, if we study cultural dynamism or cross-cultural diversity, taking into consideration the various dimensions in which it can be studied, to simplify it, we see that there are more or less 4 to 5 dimensions in which cross-cultural dynamism as a problem, as a challenge for organizational behavior can be studied. The first one is individualism versus collectivism. Individualism means your own individual, you. There are cultures that place more value on individuals rather than working collectively or rather than their society or as a group. They derive major identity by putting themselves first and then the society and group. For example, the countries like USA, Britain, Canada, these are those countries which are highly individual. They follow individualistic pattern of behavior. While on the contrary, there are countries which place more focus or which place their identity on the basis of society and their group. For example, you can take the example of the countries like Pakistan, you can take examples of Singapore And talking about India, we are slightly tilted towards collectivism. We do focus more on group and society. We derive our identity from the group and society in which we live and work. So, after individualism and collectivism, let's move on to power distance. The second thing. This doesn't need any kind of explanation, that when we speak this word power, it means that someone else has more authority than you. So power is the degree of authority or the orientation towards authority that people of a certain culture feel. For example, there are certain cultures which are completely okay with this huge distance of power, and they understand that there is a strict authority and that they are not supposed to cross the line of authority. On the other hand, we see that there are countries where power distance is not so big. And sometimes if crossing the authority is not the proper word, we can make it more humble by saying that circumventing the authority is allowed. That is not considered a crime. Countries like Austria, they have very less power authority, or very less power distance rather, while the country like Malaysia, they have huge power distance. So why are we discussing this? Because you have to apply and make your management practices suitable according to the culture you are working. The third dimension in which we can understand cross-cultural dynamism is the uncertainty avoidance. Uncertainty means you're not certain about future, you're ambiguous about future, you're unclear about future. There are cultures which have huge tolerance. Of course, there is a proper mechanism for it, but they have huge tolerance to ambiguity, something which is unclear. So these cultures will be taking more risk. They are comfortable doing that. For example, Singapore. This country has good tolerance for something which is uncertain, unknown, unclear, ambiguous. While there are other countries like Greece which have less tolerance to ambiguity or uncertainty. The next dimension that we can see is time orientation. Time orientation means there are certain countries, or there are certain culture rather, which focus on long-term time orientation and some which focus on short-term time orientation. So those which focus on long-term time orientation, they are driven by this belief that the best thing is going to happen in future. India is also one country which believes in long-term planning. See, it is reflected by savings. Okay, the savings that we do in banks. This is reflective of our culture, our belief that we believe that something more important is going to happen in future, and that's why we are doing a long-term planning. While those countries which believe in short-term plan, they are more focused on their present and for that matter even past. They are more into social obligation and they are very traditional in their belief. So this is the dimension of time orientation, which also affects managing various culture in organizational behavior. One more dimension that I want to discuss here is masculinity versus femininity. Now this masculine and feminine has nothing to do with male or female thing here. Rather, this masculinity and femininity is the reflection of the degree of assertiveness and your focus on materialism and your focus on your career, your goal, your money that you place. For example, those cultures which are highly masculine, for example Japan, they lay more focus on money, they lay more focus on their career, they lay more focus on the fact that material is very important. Material love is seen more in this culture. While those cultures which believe more in femininity, they believe that we have to take group and we have to take care of harmony. ego is found less in this culture, while it is more in masculinity. I think I have discussed enough dimensions of cross-cultural dynamism. In the next video, I will come up with more topics that are becoming the challenges in organizational behavior these days. Thank you.